The video that you're about to watch is an excerpt from a live webinar. If you enjoy the contents of this video, please like and subscribe. I'd love to hear your comments. Thanks for watching. She's having headaches, dizziness. Just spend a moment there because it gives us an opportunity now to look into each of the Mahamarmas separately and see what kind of healing we can do for each one of them. We'll start with the head Mahamarma. And what we're looking at here is how does truth process in the head and what can be done? This is like laying down the sankalp, right? Which is like the intention for the healing. The sankalp is just a Sanskrit term that means the intention. What can we do to support the truest, clearest processing of divine intelligence through the head area? But what I'm noticing in this healing is awareness going right into the center of the head area, right into the center. And I'm noticing how consciousness is more concentrated at the very center than it is at the edges. And I'm noticing how bringing awareness to the concentrated center of the concentrated energy center of the head Mahamarma helps to bring, put into perspective the less dense areas, less concentrated areas of energy around. I also am noticing that just turning our attention in on the head Mahamarma tends to activate and enliven it. So it's feeling quite alive right now. And I think if you take your hands and you put them up here like this to your head, you can probably feel this energy that's just radiant out of your whole head. You can feel it's like a circle of energy around the head. Anybody feel that? It enlivens just by putting attention on the Mahamarma. And the Mahamarma is about this big. It actually comes outside the head. And another thing that I'm seeing is the orderliness that because the awareness goes to the center and it by holding or anchoring awareness at the center of the Mahamarma, what we're really doing is we're anchoring the Mahamarma itself to totality, wholeness. And as that happens, one of the things I'm seeing for you guys, one of the things I'm seeing is balancing of these two areas that we looked at yesterday, but in much more detail, neurochemistry and physical structure. Neurochemistry especially, though. Neurochemistry especially. Dopamine, melatonin, other hormones, neuropeptides. Particularly, though, I'm coming back again and again to an area that's kind of in the back of the head, just in front of the occipital cortex. And I'm not a scientist. I'm not a neuroscientist. So I don't know exactly what this part is, but there's this area that's kind of like at the back, and it has to do with motor function, and it has to do with physiological integration with the flow of consciousness. And what I'm seeing is smoothing out the channels of communication, smoothing the channels by which consciousness interfaces or interacts with the parts of the brain that are responsible. Maybe it's the homunculus, I'm thinking, because that's the part that sort of is like a map of the body, sort of, in the back, in the inferior parietal cortex, I think. Smoothing, there's some smoothing that's going on there. There's some smoothing and integration and opening of a flow, opening flow. And that means opening channels whereby the blood brings nutrients to that part of the brain and the body. I just saw also a line of energy that kind of went from there straight up through the limbic system and then into the hypothalamus and then down into the heart. So I'm thinking this has to do also with blood flow. This also has to do with blood flow. And very, very tender, very tender. The movement comes from the finest relative, the finest abstract level of the relative, finest abstract. It's just divine intention coming up into the finest abstract. And in the finest abstract, the tiny, 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 tiniest little movement is produced that supports balancing the flow of nutrients and channels of resource from the body to the head, and particularly to this area that's responsible for the way the body moves, the way the body moves around. And I'm just sitting quietly in the seat of gratitude. Just gratitude for the fact that you would even ask that question, and to support for everybody, because we all receive the benefit, and for the flow of divine grace and intelligence for all of our bodies that helps the nourishment continue to move into that part of the brain, so that as we grow older, illnesses that could make moving around a problem are avoided. This is averting the danger that has not yet come. Just like we in this webinar are averting the danger that has not yet come in the massive transition that is in front of us as a species. We're opening up and providing access to the channels of truth. And so what that means is that for some of us, it's opening more a channel for processing and understanding truth as it comes through all the different range of ways that a person can receive information, right? Like I was talking about the class, right? You go into the classroom of third graders or whatever, and they'll have different ways they have different channels that they lean into for understanding. And it's your potential and my potential, especially as adults who've been through so many experiences, is to have access to all the channels. Why not? Why not be just as proficient receiving information through reading, through verbally, or musically, or experientially through like construction, through our hands, right? Or through the heart, through the social interactions. Why not all? Why not all? Why not opening up so that this head Mahamarma is well-rounded, you could say. It's well cultivated or cultured. That the information that comes through all those channels, all of them are accessible, all of them are good. All of them are good, and the resources flowing up into the head area support the ability to make connections between them. Between what we see, what we read, what we feel, what we hear. More connections are good. More connections allow us as individuals to see the bigger picture, to see bigger pictures, and to have a stronger sense. It helps when you naturally, spontaneously make maybe 100 or 1,000 connections with each piece of information. It helps you decipher out what information is true and what's not true. Because non-truth doesn't stand on a firm foundation. Non-truth stands on a foundation that is hypothetical or made up or based on some kind of temporary assumption about the foundation, oh, well, I assume this is a foundation. And so the thing is that if you're making like a lot of connections with each piece of information, you will very quickly be able to see which pieces of information have a firm foundation and absolutely connect neatly, like putting a puzzle together, right? They connect neatly with all the other pieces of information that you're getting that are coming in from all those other areas, and those that just don't fit. It's like somebody told me that was the truth, but it doesn't really fit with everything else that I know to be true, like that. So we're making more connections. And as a result of making more connections, we're deciphering out deeper truths. This is the healing for the head Mahamarma. Many connections, valid connections, valid connections. And of course, the more that a particular point in the brain is validated by having more connections with other points, the more it becomes a sort of fundamental. And everything, this is the last part of this healing, everything refers back to wholeness. Everything within the flow of evolution, everything back to being, divine being. It's just being that's making the connections. It's being that shows up as those points of reference.